Hey guys, Steinixos here. So today we'll be talking about Kizaru. Specifically, we'll be explaining the types of speed you need to be aware of to properly understand the speed of a character, as well as we'll be addressing some of the most silly arguments that usually comes up as it relates to Kizaru and his speed. Now, there is no end to the rationalizations and the silly arguments employed to try to downplay One Piece characters, and I generally tend to ignore the silliest ones because honestly, a lot of them are just not worth the time of day. However, one of my most active subscribers, Emperor Luffy, highlighted the need to just have a video on this topic, if only as an easy reference. So since he thought it necessary, I thought I would just do it. But note, I won't be going into every single possible argument, I'll mainly just be addressing them as categories. So with that now understood, let us get into it. Now, the first thing that is important for you to understand is the different types of speed generally depicted in fiction. So speed is usually classified into 5 main categories: combat attack speed, continuous combat movement speed, reaction speed, travel speed, and teleportation. Now, no character that we'll be referencing knows how to teleport, so we'll be ignoring that for this video. Then, travel speed generally references how long it takes an individual to move from a point A to a separate point B without the use of teleportation. And for it to be classified under travel speed, the distance separating points A and B usually have to be a large distance. So you generally would not call the movements of two characters in close combat less than a meter apart travel speed. An example of travel speed can be seen in the Kizaru-Drake interaction. Kizaru was clearly a far distance away from Drake, but being that Kizaru is light and thus could travel at light speed, he was able to traverse that large distance almost instantaneously. Now this is an important distinction that you need to understand, because Chopper, for example, would obviously not be able to cover this distance at light speed like Kizaru, but he can still react to and dodge a light speed beam fired from Queen. And likewise, Luffy likely would not be able to cover that distance at light speed like Kizaru, but he can still swing his fist at faster than light speed to match Kaido. So your travel speed does not determine your other categories of speed, and because battles are usually close combat, travel speed usually plays little to no role. So what is usually being referenced in the context of a battle is reaction speed, combat attack speed, and continuous combat movement speed. So combat attack speed speaks to how fast you can attack and how fast your attacks are. So a good example of this are jutsus. Most normal jutsus have two components: hand signs and then the jutsu itself. So for example, a fireball jutsu is dependent both on how fast the ninja can weave hand signs for the fireball jutsu, as well as the speed of the fireball jutsu itself after it has been manifested. Then reaction speed, also known as reaction time, speaks to the speed at which a character can react to an event or action. Now when we say react, we usually mean in the context of blocking or dodging. So for example, you'll note that when Kizaru appeared in front of Drake, he was not fast enough to react to, that is, block or dodge Kizaru's kick. So Drake's reaction speed was below the speed of Kizaru's kick. Similarly, at Whole Cake Island, Sanji was so fast that Oven could not even perceive, much less react to his attack until after it had already hit him. So Oven's reaction speed was below the speed of Sanji's kick. Compare this to Wano Chopper, for example, who even in a heavily injured and severely fatigued state was able to dodge a light speed laser beam fired from Queen at point blank range. So Chopper's reaction speed was above the speed at which the light speed beam was moving, and continuous combat movement speed speaks to what speed a person can maintain while actively fighting without break for a certain amount of time. So for example, in the clash between Kaido and Luffy, they are both continuously attacking and matching each other at faster than light speed. So it isn't just the speed of a single attack or a single reaction, it is what you can continuously maintain. So with that now understood, let us now get into some silly arguments. So the first class of arguments that usually comes up are real world physics limits and real world physics consequences arguments. So for example, in the real world that we live in, our current understanding of physics dictate that the speed of light is the fastest possible speed. Now, without getting into theoretical discussions about wormholes and certain quirks about the expansion of our universe, this limit of light speed is just a fundamental law of our real world universe that just cannot be overcome. As a matter of fact, In our real world, if an object were even to move at light speed, its mass would become infinite, and as a result, the energy required to move this object would also become infinite, which, as you would expect, would pose a significant burden to motion. Thus, in most theoretical discussion, the fastest possible speed you'll hear cited for things that are not light itself is something like 99.999% of the speed of light. So because of this fact about our real world, some people will then go on to make the claim that characters in fictional, that is non-real worlds like the One Piece world, can't actually move at or faster than light speed, since it is an impossible feat in our real world. Now, for the sake of argument, let us say that One Piece is the only work of fiction that you've ever watched or read in your entire life. Like, even with this, did you think that people in our real world could actually turn their bodies into lightning, or light, or magma, or ice, or crows? And did you think that people in the real world, with their bare hands, could literally grab space itself and tilt it? And did you think that people in the real world, again with their bare hands, could actually remove souls from other people and place them in inanimate objects like clouds, or fire, or the ground, giving these inanimate objects sentience and making them alive? Like, did your understanding of real world physics permit real world people like you and me to do these things? Like, obviously not. There are things that can happen in fictional worlds that cannot actually happen in our reality, and the consequences of these things don't have to follow what the consequence would be in reality. That is why it is called fiction. And light speed, as well as faster than light speeds, is a common trope in fictional worlds, and there are different consequences of this, which is dictated based on the author's preference. For example, the faster than light animeverse that tries its best to simulate the effects of faster than light travel, as theorized by real-world scientists, is Fire Force, with its main character Shinra. So Shinra in his Adola burst is able to move at the speed of light, as well as accelerate faster than the speed of light, and he disintegrates into particles while doing it. And when he does this, he moves back in time, which corresponds to what would happen based on Einstein's theory of special relativity. Compare this to Adam. Yes, the first human in history, Adam. From the record of a Ragnarok manga, Adam is able to throw a punch that is not only faster than light, but rather it is faster than time itself. And he does not disintegrate, nor does he go back in time. And then of course we have Dispo from Dragon Ball Super, who is stated to be faster than light. And even outside of anime and manga, you have Sung Jin-woo from the Korean web novel Solo Leveling, who was able to outpace Breath of Destruction, a light-based attack which is stated to move at the speed of light. And if you read comics, you know about characters like the Flash, who have so many faster than light speed feats, one of which is the fact that he can perceive events that last for less than a single attosecond. To put how fast this is into perspective, know that in 53 attoseconds, light travels less than 1,000th of the diameter of a single human hair. So again, even though fiction may have real world elements like gravity or light, there is no necessity for any work of fiction to be entirely bounded by our real-world physics limitations or our real-world physics consequences. It is always up to the author to decide. Now, the next thing that usually comes up is the fact that in our real world, humans usually have certain set biological limits. So for example, the fastest conscious human reaction times are usually around 0.15 seconds, with the absolute fastest conscious human reaction time ever recorded being 0.101 seconds. As a matter of fact, anything faster than 0.09 seconds conscious reaction time is considered to be a false start for Olympic athletes awaiting a starting gun signal. Therefore, you'll have certain people saying that characters in One Piece like Kizaru are also bounded by biological limits, such as this real-world human perceptual limit. Now again, this is easily responded to by reference in the prior section, where I pointed out that in fiction, things can happen that are different from reality. However, I want to address this from another angle, because this is an especially silly comment to levy against the One Piece world, Specifically because in the One Piece world, an integral part of the story is that there are numerous non-human species. Like for example, there is the Ming tribe, a race of anthropomorphic animals who can speak and who are naturally able to produce and control electricity. Even their babies are natural born fighters from birth. Then you have fishmen, a species that is 10 times stronger than an average human from birth and who can manipulate water as if it were a fabric with fishman jiu-jitsu. Then you have the Lunarians, a race having wings they can use to fly, they can naturally produce and manipulate fire, and they are so durable that they can survive in any natural environment. Then you have giants, who are generally over 20 meters tall and can grow to over 6 to 7 meters. And they are so strong that Harudin, for example, when faced against Matt Weiss, who increased his weight to over 10,000 metric tons, Harudin was able to receive the 10,000 metric tons Matt Weiss on his fist and punch this Matt Weiss up into the air. To put that into perspective, that is over 44 Statues of Liberties, which weigh 225 tons each, or over 909 male African elephants, the heaviest elephant in the world, weighing 11 tons each. Note, the heaviest recorded weight ever lifted by a real-world human is 2.84 metric tons. That is over 3,520 times less than the over 10,000 ton weight punched into the sky by Harudin. So how would it make any sense to put real-world biological limits on fictional species that are not even human in the first place and who have been demonstrated to be way above what any real-world human could possibly achieve? Like, a real-world human limits argument here is patently absurd. And don't forget, Harudin is complete fodder compared to certain human characters like Luffy who can easily one-shot him. But even if we were to completely ignore the existence of these non-human characters from the One Piece world and focus entirely on human characters, a lot of these humans are obviously not normal in the first place. For example, the tallest human in recorded history is Robert Wadlow at 2.72 meters tall, who eventually died due to health complications related to the abnormal physiology associated with his height. But in the One Piece world, we routinely have normal, healthy humans who are above this height. So for example, Doflamingo is 3.05 meters tall, Matvis is 4.4 meters, Chinjao is 5.05 meters, Whitebeard is 6.66 meters, Pound is 7.31 meters, and Big Mom is 8.8 meters. Then, as we already mentioned, in our real world, 2.84 metric tons is the heaviest weight that has ever been lifted by a human in our recorded history. But here we have Mr. 4 casually swinging a bat that weighs over 4 metric tons. And again, here we have a pre-time skip Zoro also casually doing handstand push-ups with only his thumbs, while there's over 4 metric tons of weight plus the weight of the bar on his feet. And again, as we already mentioned, the fastest conscious human reaction time in our recorded history is 0.101 seconds, and anything faster than 0.09 seconds is basically accepted to be impossible. But here we have Sanji dodging a bullet at point blank range after the bullet had been fired. Now, I've already made a video where I cover the silly argument that people have where they say the guns in the One Piece world look old, therefore they are slow, so I won't address that here. But even if you were to assume the gun that Mont Blanc was using, bullet speed was 900 feet per second, which is actually slower than most old real-world flintlocks, which were usually at least 1000 feet per second, and assume that Sanji was actually 3 feet away from the gun, when we know for a fact that he was instead way closer, being directly in front of the gun. Even with this blatant underestimation, Sanji would still need to react in at least 1/300th of a second, which is 0.003 seconds. That is over 30 times faster than the 0.09 real-world human limit, which was basically accepted as impossible. And we've seen even Nami moving fast enough to deflect lightning, and Luffy running so fast that he set the ground on fire. And I mean, we've even seen things like a pre-time skip Usopp being slammed through a wall at a very high speed, followed by taking a hit from Mr. 4's 4-ton bat directly to the head, and he was not only still alive, but he was even still able to stand. And Sanji easily one-shotting and kicking a giant sea cow into the sky, which is 36 meters tall and weighs 16 tons. And a 10-year-old Ace easily breaking a big thick tree with just 2 kicks. And I mean literally in the start of the series, at chapter 14, Zoro, while resting inside of a house, the house he was resting in was blasted with a buggy bomb, a cannonball explosive, which as Buggy said is able to destroy an entire small town in one shot, and Zoro emerged completely unharmed. Like it could not be any more obvious that we're not dealing with normal real-world humans here. And remember, this is before taking into account things like devil fruits, which can have some pretty wild effects, and armament haki, which makes them stronger, and observation haki, which allows some people to even see into the future. So yet again, even if you literally knew absolutely nothing about fiction at all, by just watching or reading One Piece itself, you would realize that trying to attribute normal real-world human limits to the fictional characters of the One Piece world literally makes no sense. Now, the next thing we need to talk about is the fact that in some anime, there are generally light replica attacks. So for example, in Naruto, most jutsus are just a materialization of chakra with a change of its nature and its form. So Light Fang used by Madara is a chakra-derived light jutsu. It is not actually true light. Similarly, in Black Clover, magic attacks are mana-derived, and so licked light attacks are mana-derived light magic attacks, not actually true light. So some people try to make the case that Kizaru is actually using a replica of light and not actually true light itself. However, we know that is false. Again, by just reading the manga, it is specifically highlighted that Logias are the true natural elements. This is again further stated in an SBS by Oda, the author of One Piece. And it is yet again reiterated in the latest Road to Laugh Tale Volume 3. So again, we know for a fact that Logias are not replicas, but rather they are the true natural elements themselves. So Kizaru is not a replica of light, he is the true natural thing known as light. Now the next thing we need to address is by far the silliest thing that I often come across when having this discussion. And what I'm referring to are claims such as when people say, Kizaru is light, but his light attacks and light speed movements aren't actually light speed. And other claims such as when people say, the Pacifista's laser beams are light, but they aren't actually light speed. Now, this is the strangest thing to respond to, because I've never heard someone say, Aokiji's ice, but it isn't actually cold. Or crocodile sand is sand, but it isn't actually dry. Or Ace's fire is fire, but it isn't actually hot. Because that's just silly. Remember, as we have already established, Logias are not replicas of the natural elements, but rather they are the true natural elements themselves. And thus at base, a Logia fruit grants a human all of the basic properties of a specific element. So Kizaru, who ate the light fruit, is literally a light man who has the properties of light. Now light speed is obviously a property of light, and I mean on multiple occasions we literally see Kizaru moving as a literal beam of light. In his fight against Crachman Apple, he was literally shown to move as a literal beam of light. At Marineford, after being kicked out of the sky by Marco, he was literally propelled downwards out of the sky as a literal beam of light. He doesn't even need to fully turn to a beam of light to apply light speed to his body. We saw this when he chose to retain his human form and still kicked Basil Hawkins with his leg at the speed of light. Kizaru literally says to Basil Hawkins, have you ever been kicked at the speed of light? Like what other speed of light could he have possibly been referencing other than the actual speed of light that we know to be the speed of light? Like come on guys. And the Pacifista's laser beams are literally stated to be a ray of literal light. And not only that, because to erase any confusion, the Pacifista's light beams are literally stated to be based directly on Kizaru's devil fruit. And of course, a property of light is light speed. And all of this is stated in the literal manga itself. This isn't from a movie, nor is it from a data book. It is from the literal canon manga from the author himself. And yes, Kizaru can apply additional properties to the light-based structures that he makes, like giving mass to a sword that is made of light, but that should not be surprising to you, because it is a well-established fact that with training, devil fruits can evolve to do all sorts of madness. We see this when Akaino used his magma to set water on fire, and also when he used his magma to burn Ace, a flame human. We also see this when Doflamingo literally transformed normal ground and buildings into strings using his awakening. And remember, Haki is also in this equation, something that allows you to interface with even an intangible thing such as light, and can be imbued into almost any technique to alter it. So yes, you can get additional or advanced properties added onto your devil fruit, but that doesn't change the fact that at base, a Logia devil fruit gives you the basic properties of the element it represents. So Kizaru, who ate the light fruit, obviously at base has been granted the basic properties of light, such as light speed and intangibility. And the Pacifista's lasers, which are based on this light fruit and are literally light, are obviously light speed. Now again, there are some people who will say that Kizaru can only move at light speed when the Yata mirror has been activated or when he's in a fully light form. But again, if you were paying attention in the last section, you would see that is just false. Because as we already pointed out, at Sabodi Archipelago, Kizaru asks Hawkins if he has ever been kicked at the speed of light, and he then proceeds to kick Hawkins at said speed of light while still in his human form. And by the way, it's also very important that you understand that all of Kizaru's movements are slowed down for a viewer's perspective. Like for example, you see the Yatomura light moving not because the light is actually moving slow, but rather that is simply done for the sake of viewership. So a good example of how Kizaru's movement actually is seen in the Drake interaction. And so we see where Kizaru, being far away from Drake, was able to cover the distance almost instantaneously and then kick Drake in the face before Drake could even properly react. So hopefully that is now clear. Now the next thing we need to talk about are claims about charge time. So if Kizaru wants, he can charge his laser beams to make them more powerful. However, he does not need to do so. On multiple occasions we have seen him fire off these lasers instantaneously. We see this at Marineford, for example, where he breaks the key to Ace's cuffs. Also on arrival at Sabodi when he does a light laser kick to scare two pirates. And against Hawkins where he's just spamming lasers to exhaust Hawkins' extra lives. And also against Marco where he's again just spamming light speed beads. So charging can be done if Kizaru wants to do it, but it is not a necessary requirement of his attacks. Now before we close this video off, we also need to address the common question of, is Kizaru capped at light speed? This question stems from a fundamental misunderstanding of devil fruits. The crucial fact that people need to remember is that a devil fruit user is both a normal human as well as a devil fruit human. So Kizaru is both a normal man and a light man. Him being a light man just means that without any training whatsoever, he has gained the ability to move at light speed and release light-based attacks. But that does not just suddenly remove his normal human capacity to move below light speed or to train his body to react to faster than light attacks or move at faster than light speeds. So when Kizaru fires off a light beam, for example, or literally transforms and moves in his full light beam form, that light beam moves at light speed because it is a beam of light that is moving. But when Kizaru has a sword fight with Rayleigh, he obviously has the normal human capacity to swing the sword at any speed he wants. And that can obviously be below light speed, at light speed, or above light speed. He just has the advantage in that, whereas someone else would have to train to be able to swing a sword at light speed or to be able to kick at light speed, he can just do these things at light speed with no training whatsoever because he ate the light fruit and thus can apply the light speed property of light to his actions even in human form. So no, Kizaru is not limited to light speed. No Logia is limited to any speed. They are still part human and thus retain their normal human capacity to move at any speed which they train their body to move at. Now one last thing before we go. I've been seeing a few people make the claim that Rayleigh said that characters in the One Piece world cannot move at light speed. And the thing they seem to be referencing is this screenshot from the 3D 2Y TV special where Rayleigh says to Luffy that you can't see things that move at the velocity of high speed or light. Now, from you see a sentence saying the velocity of high speed, you should already be thinking that something is probably wrong here. But let's go through this logically. So firstly, just because Oda may have had some input in this TV special, that doesn't suddenly mean that every random line of dialogue you see in this TV special is somehow true or canon. Secondly, you'll note this claim has never once ever been made in the actual manga or even in the actual anime. Thirdly, remember, the thing that many people are claiming is that Rayleigh said that humans can't move at light speed. Now, basic human comprehension shows you that Rayleigh never said that humans can't move at light speed, and he would never say that humans can't move at light speed, because remember, he himself is intimately familiar with Kizaru, a human who in the canon manga itself is literally stated to be able to move at light speed, and even mid-level characters like Ichiji was literally shown to outrun his own light speed lasers after they had been fired. So right off the bat, we know this claim of humans not being able to move at light speed is not only a misinterpretation of what was actually said, but it is also just factually incorrect, as proven by the literal manga itself. But let us address the other thing that this person is trying to get at. That is aim dodging. Now, aim dodging is basically moving out of the way of a linear attack before the attack has been fired. Now yes, with basic observation haki, you can predict what an opponent will do, and with advanced observation haki, you can even literally see into the future. So aim dodging is indeed possible with observation haki. However, in this specific instance in this 3D2Y TV special, you'll note that the predictive function of observation haki is not what Rayleigh was talking about. He was instead telling Luffy that it may be hard to see high-speed targets with your eyes. However, if you use observation haki, you can tell where that target is. That is to say, you can use observation haki to see the target that you couldn't see with your eyes. So Rayleigh was talking about the position sensing capabilities of basic observation haki, not its predictive function. So again, this is yet another intentional misrepresentation of a statement that was not even canon in the first place. But let us go even deeper and address the claims of aim dodging, which remember is moving out of the way of a linear attack before the attack has been fired. Now, this person and many others routinely try to discredit One Piece speed feats by suggesting it is all just observation haki aim dodging. Now, even at face value, I've never quite understood why people try to use this argument as a sort of got you, given that even with observation haki, you still need to be able to move at least close to the speed of an attack to actually dodge it. Like take Sander Sonia for example, even while predicting Luffy's movement with basic observation haki, she still could not physically keep up with him, and thus Luffy easily tagged her. And I mean, even if Luffy dodging this light speed beam and calling it too slow was really observation haki aim dodging as some people like to claim, that still wouldn't change the fact that functionally, while using observation haki, Luffy would demonstrably be able to deal with light speed attacks and view them as too slow. So that critique as a means of trying to discredit One Piece characters doesn't actually accomplish anything, even if it were actually true. However, we know for a fact that One Piece characters' speed are not dependent on aim dodging. Like firstly, let us look at Luffy dodging this Pacifista's light beam in full context. So in the anime, even though it is a little different in that 3 beams were fired instead of 1, it is still clearly depicted that Luffy did not move or attempt to dodge until after the beams were already fired and were in a close vicinity to him. So that is definitionally not aim dodging, which requires you to dodge before the attack is fired. Thirdly, in the manga, there is dialogue confirmation where Luffy literally calls the light beam too slow. Like, what would be the point of calling the light beam too slow if he moved out of the way before it was fired? But I'm sure there'll at least be one person who'll say that no, he wasn't actually calling the light beam too slow. He was calling the Pacifista too slow, despite the anime literally showing otherwise. So just to hammer this point in even further, we know that a Wano chopper is not faster than an immediate post time skip Luffy, or Doflamingo, or Katakuri, and we know that Wano Chopper does not have observation haki, thus you can't accuse Chopper of aim dodging using observation haki since he does not have observation haki. Yet Chopper, even while severely injured and bleeding out and also clearly visibly fatigued, even in this state, Chopper was able to react to and dodge a light speed beam from Queen at point blank range. And note, immediately before Chopper dodged this light speed beam at point blank range in his severely injured and clearly fatigued state, Chopper wasn't even fully paying attention to Queen. He was instead thinking back to his discussion with Caesar Clown. So again, saying that One Piece characters need to use observation haki to aim dodge light speed attacks is demonstrably incorrect. And we can go even deeper, because even if you didn't have any of these prior facts, and you indeed thought that all dodging was indeed observation haki aim dodging, we could still just bring up Kaido, because on their initial encounter, even a Gear 4 Luffy, who we know could literally see into the future after fighting Katakuri, even this Gear 4 Luffy, while looking directly into Kaido's eyes, so we know he wasn't distracted, even this Luffy still could not react to and was blitzed by an attack from a human form Kaido and was knocked out in one shot. So we know for a fact that even a human form Kaido is faster than that light speed beam that Luffy was not only dodging but also calling too slow, and which Chopper dodged at point blank range. And just to hammer this in even further, if this still somehow was not clear enough, even after Luffy then got faster and was now finally able to perceive human form Kaido's attack, he was still hit by this attack. And Luffy even literally says that he was looking into the future, yet he still could not dodge. And after many more power-ups, we now see where even a base state Luffy is able to completely perceive and effortlessly dodge this same attack, but not simply from a base state Kaido, but rather from the exponentially faster drunken hybrid form Kaido. And again, Luffy, while in Gear 2, Gear 3 state, is also matching this drunken hybrid form Kaido blow for blow. And by the way, all this time, Kaido was not even using observation haki. So this claim about the speed of One Piece characters is literally wrong on every single possible level of analysis, and the aim dodging argument as a whole as a means of trying to downplay the speed of One Piece characters is thoroughly misinformed. But anyway, that's the video guys. Hopefully that cleared up most of the misunderstandings and the intentional downplays of Kizaru. But let me know what you thought about the video in the comment section down below, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you liked the video. But anyway, see you guys next time.